I have the tendency of getting in too many projects.
I know what you mean, yes. The manager of the national team of Age of Sigmar.
I'm the coach, yes.
So what does this mean exactly?
Going to the World Championship, you need to have what we call a golden ticket. So you need to qualify. Because I'm the coach, I'm more into fine aspects of strategy, gameplay, and selecting players for gameplay reasons. Are 8 players against their 8 players.
At the same time?
It's all at the same time, but each on their individual table.
Wow, and you need to keep an eye on those 8 games at the same time?
Yes, this year I'm going to be playing as well.
What is the biggest mistake that teams make during these pairings?
A mistake it is to overcommit on a plan that you already have.
Playing fast, huh? So we can see that multitasking skills of playing your own game and keeping an eye on the other 7, right? What is more important, the technical skill of a player or the emotional resilience? What advice would you give to aspiring competitive players in Age of Sigmar?
All the good players have done that. They've seen all the videos that you've seen. They know all the things that you're going to learn. I grew up on that kind of stuff. So I wanted to make something of my own, and making a D&D campaign.
You seem to have then created subclasses, spells, monsters, things that are unique to your world. How do you test whether something is balanced before it hits the table?
It's just a small test.
Even if it breaks the game?
Yeah, if it breaks the game, something went wrong. But
what advice would you give someone that is trying to initiate building their own world?
Because I'm such a visual person, I like saving a bunch of images for a bunch of references.
You were also help creating a game called Trials of Akash in the world called Soul Atlas. It would be like the big umbrella in terms of lore and world building. And then you are building a specific game within this environment.
It's a huge project. Right now, it has over 150 people. Trials of Akash is based on a system called the Forged in the Dark system. Fights are meant to be very gritty and bloody.
You're about to launch this Kickstarter campaign, physical setup that people can use on their Dungeons & Dragons campaigns.
We talk about Dungeons & Dragons because it is the more common one, and it is designed kind of with Dungeons & Dragons in mind. It's not tied to Dungeons & Dragons. For this project in particular, we wanted to make kind of a castle feel, like abandoned ruins, or we call it the abandoned keep. It's a very demanding environment, Kickstarter, in which I didn't know that you have to spend a lot of money on ads and do a lot of publicity.
Hello, Alexandre. Good morning. Thank you for accepting the invitation of being part of the show today.
Yeah, no problem.
I need to confess one thing. I've had many guests here which have interesting projects, but you alone, yourself, you have so many things happening around you that I'm not sure how long this conversation will take, because you are associated with lots of interesting things and projects, which for people that don't know, let me just throw everything for people to know. So you are the coach or the manager of the national team of Age of Sigmar. You also are famous for creating a Dungeons & Dragons campaign on a world that you created that you have endured for some years. You're also helping developing a tabletop RPG called Trials of Akash within the Soul Atlas world. And more recently, you are about to launch, on the day we are speaking, you are about to launch a Kickstarter campaign for a modular electronic app-controlled tabletop terrain system for RPG sessions. And if this wasn't enough, you also work on TV. You work on production of TV content, which is also interesting because of some of the things you did with these projects. So why not have this conversation and get to know your projects as well?
Sure. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the invite. I'm sure there's a lot of things you want to know. But yes, it's been quite hectic. I have the tendency of getting in too many projects, but I keep my passion for all of them. So
I know what you mean.
Let's hope,
yes.
Yeah. Let's hope everything goes well.
So instead of making your life easier, I'm now going to make your life even more complex, because we are now starting to play Azul as well at the same time. So let's see.
Okay.
We're starting, and you are the one starting. So
I'm the one starting.
You will be the one starting. Yes.
Okay. Let's see if I can get the hang of this.
Cool. So, Alexandre, since this is mainly like a board games channel, before we start going to your projects, what is exactly your connection with board games?
Well, I very much am into board games. I've played them with my father mostly for my whole life. My father is also a big gamer. He is in an association It's called AJSP, which is Associação de Jogos de Simulação Portugal, which is the oldest wargaming association in Portugal. And I've always been there when I was a kid and playing with them. Although they play more like miniature games, like Napoleonics, like historical games. I'm also very interested in that sort of stuff, but I'm more of a fantasy and sci-fi guy. And my father is more historical games. Oh, and the shield is exactly the same colors as it was and whatnot. But we've always
So the dwarves and the elves.
Yeah, I'm more of a slaying dragons type.
Okay.
But I don't know. I've always been playing tabletop games and board games my whole life, and I have a bunch at home as well.
Okay, so maybe one day you can bring your father as well to the channel here for him to talk about his adventures on these tabletop RPGs or miniatures games.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he played Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition or 1st edition or whatever it was in the 80s.
I played 2nd edition, so I don't think it's that old because I've played 2nd edition. I still don't understand how taco works today, but could be interesting. Specifically on board game side, could you give us like a few references of games that you like for us to create a mental image?
Yes, sure. I'd say that my favorite board game is kind of a niche thing, which is Kingdom Death Monster. I don't know if you've heard about it.
You consider that board game?
Yes, it's a board game. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I also play a lot of Rising Sun, Blood Rage. I like more kind of dungeon delving types, such as Massive Darkness. Kind of more complex games. I also like stuff like Nemesis, for example.
Yep. Anything without miniatures?
Without miniatures, I mean, some card games, I guess. But I do love miniatures, and it's been one of my passions for a long time.
Okay. I also like miniatures, but I don't take it to that level where I paint or like to assemble things. It's just whatever comes in the box is enough for me, because I don't have those skills. So, but it's always funny for you to visualize the miniatures and move them around, etc. And then the kids also love it. The kids, when I see miniatures in the game, it's like the attention focus on the miniatures is quite high, and you need to remind them, hey, we need to play, right? It's not just moving around the miniatures, but it's always very fun. But speaking about miniatures, so yeah, you present yourself here as being the manager of the national team of Age of Sigmar. Wow, I didn't know there was already national teams or even championships for Age of Sigmar. But before going there, for those that are listening and did not know what Age of Sigmar is, can you briefly explain what it is?
Of course. So in the 90s and 2000s, there was a very popular war game called Warhammer Fantasy Battles. And eventually that game came into a sort of stale situation, and they abandoned the game, and the game evolved into something called Age of Sigmar. Now, it has since been revived as something called the Old World, Warhammer the Old World, but most people are still now playing Age of Sigmar. And it's now on its 4th edition. It's the game that you play on table with a bunch of miniatures. You have your army against someone else's army. It's based on a fantasy world. That's an evolution of the old Warhammer fantasy games. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it. The more famous version of it is the 40K universe, which is the sci-fi version.
I love it.
And yeah, that has a lot of media games such as Space Marine and things like that. Dawn of War as well. So it is very, very much a known franchise, let's say. And I'm very much into it. I'm also very much into 40K, although I don't play it as much. I play much more of Age of Sigmar. It's what I've dedicated myself to, at least for the past 2 years. I started it quite a while back on 2nd edition. This was maybe 6 years ago. Then I made a small 2-year break, and then I've come back for the past 2 years.
Like, if for someone that never played, unfortunately, never had the chance to play 40K miniatures, and Age of Sigmar. Is it the same game, but instead of being on fantasy world, is like on space? Or is there dramatic differences between the games?
There are many differences. However, there is also points in which it is the same. So the type of moves you make, you are still rolling d6 dices, things like that. However, for something like 40K, you have a lot of there's more management, and there's also more models on the table. Age of Sigmar is significantly less stuff on the table, which is one of the reasons why I like it more. And also, I would say that the community is very good. I'm not very into the community of 40K, so I can't really talk much about it. But for Age of Sigmar, at least, I feel that even though we're not a lot of people, everyone is very tight. And I really like that social aspect of it.
Okay. At least with you, right? Because you are the manager of the national team?
I'm the coach, yes.
The coach. So what does this mean exactly? So there are local events, and then there are like regionals and worldwide events?
So usually, in Portugal at least, there are just local events. There's one very big event that happens every year that's called 𝘚𝘪𝘀, and it has a bunch of other games that happen there, but it is traditionally the event that has most people in Portugal. However, since last year, we've begun trying to do things a little different and start evolving the national team, because there is, in fact, two big worldwide competitions for Age of Sigmar. One is called the AOS Worlds, in which all the teams from all around the world compete as teams, as national teams. There's also a singles event where you can play as a single player, but it's not as prestiged, let's say, as the teams event. And then there is the Age of Sigmar World Championship that traditionally happened in Atlanta in the United States, and that one was more prestige for singles events, to figure out who's the best in the world, basically. But since the new tariffs and the new problems that we've had with the United States, and Age of Sigmar being a UK-based game, this year, for the first time, the World Championship is going to be in Barcelona. So we're very happy about it, because that means we're more likely to attend. But at the same time, keep in mind that for going to the World Championship, you need to have what we call a golden ticket. So you need to qualify to go to the World Championship. And you can get that by participating in tournaments, winning tournaments, and some of the prizes of those tournaments are the golden tickets.
You told me offline that you are going to attend an event in the next days, right? Is it some qualifier?
It is. It can be a qualifier. So it is the largest teams event in the world, which is in Talavera de la Reina in Spain. It's going to be 70 teams of 6 people. And the winning team, they all get golden tickets for the World Championship.
Okay, well, cool. Okay, so we understand the purpose and where you're trying to get that golden ticket and big World Championship, but on a practical level, how does it work to be a manager, right? Would you overview like a scout, you know, all the players in Portugal and you select the best ones for that team? Or
it is... I don't usually go out and try and fish players unless they are mercenaries. And mercenaries is something that newer teams, which we are, can go into. Like if we don't have enough players in the current country, or we don't have enough qualified players, let's say, we can go to other countries and try and get 1 or 2 people to help us out, like 1 or 2 pro players that can be on the team. And those are the only ones that I would contact directly.
Okay.
But for the national team, usually what happens is we put out a survey and anyone can sign up, and then we review all. When I say we, it's me and the captain, which is 𝘱𝘱𝘭𝘆. We have a very symbiotic relationship. It is more that because I'm the coach, I'm more into the define aspects of strategy, gameplay, and selecting players for gameplay reasons. And him as the captain is more of a diplomatic face, and he's the one who talks to the other teams, helps organize events and things like that.
Okay. But still, who gave you this authority to be the one coaching with Pedro the national team? Is there anyone could say, now I'm the manager, or who gave this authority to you?
So I played as a player last year in Worlds, and it went very well. Even though we qualified, I think we were 17th out of 28 teams, but it was also our first time there. So it was very good that we managed to be ahead of a lot of teams that were already there for a long time.
When you say there, is that worldwide championship?
Not the Worlds, the AOS Worlds, the one who's more prestige for the teams. And that happened in Austria last year. This year it's going to happen in Italy. And we're going as well. So I'm the coach for this year, and my job is basically to gather everyone, that the best players in Portugal, to go to Italy and get the best result possible, basically.
Okay, so there is this entity that manages those challenges globally, and then you are appointed by this entity, by this association, to be the Portuguese figure.
No, I'm appointed by the team itself. So basically, last year we had an American coach who's called Ryan, and he was very good, and he taught me a lot of things. And this year I took up the challenge of being the coach. I was invited by the captain, 𝘱𝘭𝘠𝘭𝘠, and a lot of teams have their own way of choosing who's the captain, who's the coach. Sometimes they have internal tournaments, things like that. In our case, it was just that we decided that 𝘠𝘠𝘭 was remaining captain, and 𝘠𝘠𝘭 invited me to be the coach. And usually it is either the coach, it is usually the captain that invites the coach, basically.
Okay.
But it might happen differently in other national teams. Yeah.
Okay. And so as a coach, do you focus more on preparing players, the mindset that they take to these events, or the decisions that needs to be made?
I think mindset is hugely important, especially in a game called Age of Sigmar. Let's say, for example, if you have a player that is very good at what he does, but he's not prepared psychologically for the pressure, that can affect his game tremendously. I'd say that, for example, being at Worlds, you have that pressure of, if I fail, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, my team is going to suffer, right? And that pressure is something that you feel in your heart very... I'm sure this is the same for most teams' games, right? If you drop the ball, you feel very badly. But in this game, you have to make so many decisions during the game. It's not like a physical game, like a sports event, where you sometimes do stuff like your body's prepared to do the things you need to do. Sometimes you get tricked by your opponents, right? So you have to be prepared for all things. I like to go very much into the strategic part of it, but the mindset and the will to not only win, but to rationalize your losses and learn from your losses is the most important part, for sure.
That's because, if I'm not mistaken, Alexandre, this game works by pairing. The team gets paired with players from the other teams, right? And so there are like individual autonomous games happening, facing each other, and then it's the overall result of those 5 games that determines if you pass or not.
Yes, so the tournament, let's say we get paired into a match against Spain. So it's going to be our 8 players against their 8 players.
At the same time?
It all at the same time, but each on their individual table.
Yes.
So it'll be
you need to keep an eye on those 8 games at the same time?
Yes. And this year I'm going to be playing as well. So I'm going to be playing, and at the same time, at any time, basically, the players can ask for one timeout during the game, in which they call me, and I go over on their game. They have like 2 minutes to discuss the game with me. I'll give them some pointers. Oh, you should go in this direction, do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I go back. And each player can only do this once. So during the game, you're not supposed to be giving tips and asking for advice during the game. You just have this one chance to ask a question, basically, to your coach.
Wow, I was not aware. Yeah. What is the biggest mistake that teams make during these pairings?
Pairings are a very funny thing, because you basically, what happens is we each have cards, and each card represents a player, and that's how you do the pairings.
It's random.
No, it's not random. We put one card down. I put one card down, and my opponent puts one card down, and then we each flip it at the same time. That's the defender. And now I'm going to pick two attackers, to go against that one, and he picks two against mine. Then we reveal them, and I pick one of the two that he gave me, and he picks one of the two. And then the unselected player goes back into the hand. And this goes on and on until all the 8 matches are completed.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to basically have a very good idea about who's good against who, not only the army itself, but the player itself. If I know the players in the other team, I know maybe that player is a very aggressive player, so I'm going to put a very defensive player to try and minimize the damage that he's going to do. So you have to kind of have that inside knowledge into who you're going up against, because most teams will have one or two kind of star players, or players that are kind of famous on their team
already.
Well, if you go against someone who's like the English team, they're all star players, basically. But we try and, during pairings, and your question was about the mistakes people do during pairings, I would say that it is a mistake to overcommit on a plan that you already have. You have to be flexible during pairings. Sometimes things happen that you weren't expecting. You were expecting them to start with the lead defender that you thought was going to be that, and maybe they switch you around and do something else. You have to think on your feet and be very prepared for that. Different teams have different ways to prepare for pairings and to even do the pairings. Myself personally, we use kind of an Excel matrix thing where we insert all the possibilities of pairing. So if I go against player A, B, C, D, what's my expected score against them? And do that for every single member of the team. And so we have a grid of the positive pairings and the bad pairings. And then I have to play with that and try and save people from their worst possible pairings and try and give them the best possible pairings. And then absorbing some losses along the way, because everything can't be perfect, right? Because the other team is also trying to do the same.
So I'm looking at the scores now, and I see after the 4th round, you're playing fast, huh? So we can see that multitasking skills of playing your own game and keeping an eye on the other 7, right? We are 40 to 29, okay? Not bad, not bad, Alexandre, not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost completing a row here, but I'm not sure I want to, because that will end the game. And I want more points before the game ends.
Yeah, you need to do your math to see if it's worthy or not, but I'm also close to finish one row.
You are.
So maybe I'll just trigger that and see what happens, next.
We'll see. I think I pulled too many pieces from the center too early. But we'll see.
Let's see in the end how the strategy if the strategy compensated or not. Speaking about strategies, and as a coach here, what is more important, the technical skill of a player or the emotional resilience?
I think that you need to have a certain minimum of skill. And that usually I talk about something called when you kind of click, you do the click. And the click is when you understand how the game actually works. And that happened to me on I remember perfectly. It was an online tournament. That's the largest online tournament in the world, which is called the Release the Beast. And I was playing against the captain of the Russian team. And I was playing a very aggressive list, and he was playing a very defensive list. And I got completely destroyed. I went into his lines, all my army was destroyed. And I kind of clicked on me that I was playing the game in a way I wasn't supposed to. I was trying to destroy his army, but the game's not about destroying their army. It's about doing the best possible score that you can with the game that you have. So if you're in a bad matchup, it's hard to sometimes decide not to do anything and just pass the ball to to the other player and say, okay, you do your move, because all the moves that I have are going to harm me more than they help me. And that's a hard thing to do. Usually when you're playing, you want to do things, like you want to attack or move your pieces or shoot here, do magic there. And sometimes doing nothing you need that sort of constraint of saying, none of this is good for me, so I'm going to sit here and now you do your move, and maybe you'll be out of position then. And that sort of understanding of the game is very important, and I talk about it with all my players. Other than that, once you're past that phase, you really need that warrior mentality and understanding that, okay, I'm here to win, but if I lose, I need to learn something from my loss, and that's what I'm going to bring to the next game. Just dwelling on your losses and thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done this. Oh, it's too bad. It brings you nowhere, and it won't help in the end.
What advice would you give to aspiring competitive players in Age of Sigmar?
I would say that now I don't know what to do on Azul, man. I don't have a good play. It's one of those I don't have a good play here. But I would say that for
you can call the coach.
Yeah, I want to call the coach now.
You have one chance to call the coach.
For competitive players or players who are aspiring to be competitive, there's a lot of online tools that you can have. Like you can go on YouTube. There's a lot of known YouTube creators, and there's a lot of channels on Discord as well. AOS Coach is a very good one. You can go and talk with other people who play the same army as you, and that's a good starting point. But you need to keep in mind that all the good players have done that. They've seen all the videos that you've seen. They know all the things that you're going to learn that way. So you're never going to learn unless you play against people who know more than you, who beat you, and you learn from those losses. That's absolutely necessary. We called it the seal clubbing phase. And after that's done, the best way to evolve rapidly in the game is to get a sort of a mentor. Find a player in your local community or someone who you respect. You can send a message over someone, even from another country, online, and ask them to coach you. Actually, ask someone to mentor you through the game. Just teach me how this works. And I think that's really the best way to evolve, is going past the beginning part of just learning the rules. Just ask for help in your local community, because this is a game about community. It's a game about socializing. We're going on a huge car trip tomorrow in 2 cars to go to Spain to have a blast during the weekend playing against it's 70 teams. 66 of those 70 teams are Spanish. So we're one of the 4 international teams that are going. And it's going to be a blast, and we're going to have a bunch of fun. So don't, try and win the game in your head all alone, thinking you can't evolve. There's always someone to teach you.
Okay. Before we change to a different topic, let's see, because we're really close to the end of this first game. Let's see how it unfolds. So you left me these 2. I cannot do anything with any of them, so I'll just send it to next. But I'm going to give the yellow to you just to screw you on that final point there.
Yeah, I mean...
yeah. Good. Let's see. Because we have so many topics yet to cover, would you accept a rematch after this one? And we keep playing and talking? Okay.
So I'm still learning Azul, but...
you need to pick the yellow one.
I don't want to.
In the next.
This is a bad move for me.
It's the only move, so it's the only move. Okay. So you see now how you are scoring much more because you are moving the pieces to the near the adjacent ones. So the score just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start focusing on filling out the middle ones first next
time. My strategy. That's my strategy, Alexandre. Middle row always, because it's adjacent to everything, right? Okay, 77 to 50. Not bad for the first game, right? So everyone knows that you're playing this for the first time. So now I can propose a rematch, and you have a perfect idea of what happens, right?
Okay.
You should have
I
an
won a
invitation on your side.
trophy. Okay.
Yeah, so you're now unlocking the achievements.
Yes.
And I'm going to start. Okay, well, the game starts then. So one of the other topics that I mentioned about your profile and your projects is this Dungeons and Dragons campaign that you created, and it's been enduring for some years. Could you give me like more details about what you've done exactly with this campaign and what is different from any other campaign that many people do?
Yes. So basically, I wanted to make a world of my own. I mean, I really like Forgotten Realms and all the usual settings for Dungeons and Dragons. And I've always very much liked Dungeons and Dragons. It's always been my baseline RPG go-to, like for most people, I'm sure as well, or many people. But I wanted to have something that was my own. I didn't really like how some of the races are portrayed in the original setting. And even though I use many of the same races as you'll find in usual Dungeons and Dragons, like dwarves and tieflings and whatnot, I wanted to kind of give them a kind of a twist. And so I started out with thinking of the factions. And then I thought of the world, and then I thought of the geography of the world, and then I started inserting them, and then just world building and thinking of ancient history and ages and what happened 2,000 years ago and how this world came to be and things like that. It's always something that has fascinated me. I've read Lords of the Rings and Silmarillion when I was really young, and it's always something that has motivated me. And also my father also liked all that stuff a lot, and I always used to read his old sci-fi books from the 90s and the 80s, and so I have a bunch of those yellowed pages old sci-fi books.
Europe America collection.
Yeah, those kinds. And so I grew up on that kind of stuff. So I wanted to make something of my own, and making a D&D campaign always felt kind of natural to do something that would help us explore that world, help me with the world building, and kind of see what the other players think about it, how they interact with it. And it's always been something that I've enjoyed a lot. I've both played it as a player and a game master, and I usually tend more to being a game master than a player, and I have a bit more fun being a game master, although it is also much more work. So have to balance the two things.
Yeah. So if I understood correctly, you start idealizing this kind of world and the lore behind it, the race, the factions, the geographies, and then you decided to start campaigning it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the whole background was created for you in your mind, and then you allowed players to get into campaigns.
Yes. I mean, I started the campaign. I did a first playthrough of the campaign a bunch of years back, like 10 years ago or something like that, just online on Roll20, and it went really well. Then the campaign kind of stopped because of time issues with the players and whatnot. But I'd say that typical D&D problems. I have managed to finish campaigns, but
wow,
and some people never have. But but it's always fun to start a new campaign as well. So it's something that I always enjoy and would do all over again as long as I had the time to.
How much chance do players have the chance to change the world that you've built? Do you allow that?
I mean, the world is sort of built, but as far as their character goes, some players need to go into some sort of background of their character, and for that they need to world build a little bit as well, because maybe they want to be from some village that doesn't even have a name, and they want to, make a story of what happened there, and that's world building as well. You're basically taking the elements that already exist, the macro elements, and making them micro.
You allow that?
I do allow that, and I've had players who also wanted to do something different, like I want to have a special subclass or something like that is just from this world, and that is highly interesting for me. And I've had that before, where I helped someone create their own subclass, and we tested it out during the game, and that was very good.
And when you plan the sessions, do you plan like long story arcs, or when you build campaigns, you build it like session by session?
I plan long story arcs, even though I prepared session by session because it is kind of an open world. I did 2 campaigns, basically. One of them, you were on the side of the humans, let's say, because there's kind of a few different factions, but the main factions are a human-based version, which is sort of an authoritarian, human-centered system, where elves and dwarves and halflings and gnomes are sort of sub-citizens. They have certain rights, but they are sort of subservient to the humans. And this is not a good, government. This is sort of authoritarian system. And even though players start on that side of the coin, they are trying to figure out what the corruption is within the system, trying to make it better, trying to get more rights to the other species, because some of them are also from different species and races. And the second campaign that I did was focused on their opponents, which is the orcs, the goblins, and the gnolls and the ogres and whatnot. And those kind of more traditionally monstrous races in this world that I've created are sort of the liberators. They're the rebels that are going against this oppressive system of the humans. So I kind of switched the script there a little bit. And I've had players play on both sides of the fence and see how they go with it.
Okay. You seem to have then created subclasses, spells, monsters that are things that are unique to your world. So when you are implementing those new things, how do you test whether something is balanced before it hits the table?
Well, there's not a lot of testing that you can do unless you're actually doing it on the table. You do the math and see, okay, is this overpowered? Is this class doing too much damage? Or is it healing just too much? But it's easier when you compare it to other subclasses and other classes, see what they give you. For this subclass that we developed in particular, which was a monk subclass, it was because this campaign has a lot of history and lore and godlike mythos. It was something that it was an orc character, and she was a monk. And those sorts of monks, they believed in the stars, the constellations, and they worshipped the stellar elements of the sky, basically. And so she would have stances, like monk fighting stances, based on the constellations in the sky. And so it was something that we played around with. Okay, you get certain bonuses if you're using certain stances, right? And they represent certain gods that those orcs believe in. So there's a god that's a turtle, for example. So it's a very defensive stance, and it's very based on the earth and being grounded and not letting things go to your head and be emotionally stable and whatnot. So they have a lot of theory and philosophy that goes into it as well. And so the stance reflects that. So it was a fine way of doing world building while thinking about that sort of stuff as well.
But do you like make fights between yourself when testing, or you just create the idea and let's put it on the table and see?
I do it like once or twice to see if it's not ridiculous, and then I think it's most fun to see it in action. So it's just a small test. Okay,
even if it breaks the game.
Yeah, if it breaks the game, something went wrong, but usually it doesn't.
Yeah, the dungeon master behind the screen, he may, you know what I mean, right? You scroll and this is too much damage. You may just
fake
the roll.
No, I wouldn't fake the roll, but I would do it for the next session. I would talk to the player and say, okay, how did you feel about this? Was this a little bit too overpowered? So because we're world building at the same time and making the rules at the same time, I wanted to have that. There's flexibility, and I've been quite lucky with the players that I had. They weren't like problem players or anything like that. But I usually kind of handpick my players for the campaigns as well. I kind of invite players to do campaigns, and then if I'm missing people, I'll put on an ad or something and see who wants to come around. But I've been very lucky with the players that I've got.
Okay. You're also like a manager, a coach of these players, right? So if you spot someone that is not socializing well or mixing well with the rest of the team, you just fire him.
Well, I wouldn't. I would have a few conversations before firing them, but I come from a background of my work is very in the moment and very stressful. The filming world for soap operas and whatnot, and it's very demanding. So I'm used to having this sort of hard conversations and risking hurting people's feelings to tell them what they really need to hear. So I usually don't have the much problems with conflict and off game resolutions to in game problems and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what advice would you give someone that is trying to initiate building their own world?
What helped me, I'm a very visual person. So for my game, whenever I had an idea, let's say I want to create a new race. For example, I have a specific race on my world that is unique to my world, which are called the Skarl. And the Skarl are sort of humans, but they are larger, more powerful, and they have a sort of a caste system. And they're organized in clans, and they have a mask that they all wear. The mask is symbolic of their culture, and they only take it off when they're within family or in their homes and whatnot, and they never take it out in public. But because this is a race that didn't exist, I couldn't really go and look for it online. So I tried to look for things that were similar and then help me visualize what they would actually look like. So I usually use Pinterest a lot, and I organize everything in folders. So if you're trying to make a world for me, because I'm such a visual person, I like saving a bunch of images for a bunch of references in different folders and saying, this is what an elf looks like in my world. So I look over for elves and I look for the things that are similar. If they're not, then it's not something I want to confuse my players with. I usually give my players sort of mood boards of, okay, you want to play a dwarf? This is what dwarves look like in this world. And I'll give them sort of a mood board of a dwarf character. Because it is common that players come into your games with sort of pre-made notions of a character even before they know the world. And this is something that I've always struggled with a little bit, which is, for example, I'll give the players a list of 10 playable races, and they'll ask for the 11th. They never want the 10 that are there. I want to be a centaur, flying centaur, whatever. And I explain to them, okay, that doesn't exist in this world. Maybe there's an island somewhere in this world where there might be flying centaurs, okay? And we can maybe make a story about that. But you can't just be a whoopity-doopity centaur in the middle of town, where in the authoritarian system where races have specific rules in society and whatnot, and no one knows what you are, right? So we kind of have to manage that as well.
Interesting. Cool. So while we were speaking, I didn't interrupt, but in terms of scoring, you are now giving me a beating in terms of scoring for the second round of the second game.
I've learned how this game works now.
You learn fast. Okay. So you were also help creating a game called Trials of Akash in the world called Soul Atlas, which I was not aware. But it looks like an interesting project, because you'll be the better person to explain. But this Soul Atlas would be like the big umbrella in terms of lore and world building, and then you are building a specific game within this environment. And I've left on the video description the link for this project, which could be visible many interesting things, including that the project itself is multiple media. So there's the idea for comics, films, games, music. Why this strategy, and exactly what is your connection with all these things?
Okay, so Soul Atlas is a very, very heartwarming project for me. It's something that I was not aware of maybe 3 years ago as well. But I actually met someone who's a very interesting character called Tiago, and he Tiago da Cruz, and he's a sword fighter and sword fighting instructor. Okay, so he had collaborated with Soul Atlas in their short film that they had made, or they had started filming for the fighting choreographies with swords and whatnot. And I was playing with him Dungeons and Dragons, and he mentioned, "Oh, those guys are making a short film. You're into film, and so maybe you want to contact them and see if you can help out. Maybe you want to join the project and whatnot."
Right.
So Yeah, so I went into it, and in the beginning, I wasn't supposed to have anything related to games. It was just that I was going to help them film. But there was a sort of a lack of structure and a lack of leadership in their games department, and I was also very interested in games, and I was developing a card game for the world, the D&D world that we mentioned before. And so they knew that I was making a card game, so they asked, "Oh, what if we make that card game but in the Soul Atlas universe?" And so it began like that. But eventually, we evolved that into the sense that we wanted to make an actual role-play game in the Soul Atlas universe. And so I've started kind of spearheading that project with them. Now, Soul Atlas is a huge project. It is, even though it is something that's sort of a still non-profit thing, because we don't really have any products out yet. It is, I would say right now, it has over 150 people working on it. And none of them are getting paid. It is all, they have a sort of a share system where you get shares of the company for participating and working for the company.
Interesting.
But if one day it blows up and it becomes very good, then we'll make money off of it. But most of people have been working on it for 3 years, 2 years, a year, and getting nothing in return other than the fruits of their work. Yeah, other than the shares themselves, which aren't really worth anything right now. So it's an investment that we're doing in a project that we love, and we don't really know what's going to happen, if it's going to be very good or. But we have a lot of faith in it, and I would say that for our choice of making it a multimedia thing, it is just that we have had so many interesting and very talented artists coming in, and they are from so many different areas, and they have so much knowledge that we had the possibility of making a multimedia thing where one world, one universe is kind of the theme for a lot of different media, be that short films, games, comic books. We've made music albums, soundtracks, you name it. It's been quite a journey, and people are still sort of understanding how the lore works, and world building is constant. So there's a lot of big departments in Soul Atlas, and I'm proud to be the head of the games department.
Okay. What core themes or questions does Soul Atlas explore that you felt were missing or undeserved in fantasy worlds, other fantasy worlds?
So the theme of Soul Atlas is very much about morality. It is
morality.
That, yes, it is the struggle between the light and the shadow. I know this is a common theme for things like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. You have the dark side of the Force and whatnot. But in Soul Atlas, that is a very specific visual thing. It's not so much as a theory. It is that when people die in the Soul Atlas world, your soul actually leaves your body, and so I took a massive hit now because I didn't have where to put these red pieces.
Your soul is almost leaving your body as well.
Yeah, my soul is almost out of my body. So basically, when someone dies in Soul Atlas, their soul leaves their body, and there's sort of a conflict within the soul. Your soul either becomes a radiant soul or a shadow soul. And that is not something that's a theory or religious. It is a actual physical phenomena that anyone can observe. And so if your soul is radiant, then a tree will grow out of your body. It's called a soul tree. It will encompass the soul. And eventually that tree will bloom, and your soul will ascend to what they call the ancestor realm. And your soul basically rises to the heavens, and you will meet paradise. Now, what happens in the ancestral realm, if you go and become a star, if you go and meet your loved ones, that part is theory. There's a lot of different religions in Soul Atlas, and they have different theories about what happens. But that the soul becomes a tree, and that the tree blooms and the soul ascends to the heavens, that is for sure true. Now, the opposite can happen, which is your soul becomes a shadow soul and it sinks into the earth. It will travel through the roots of the earth until it meets, it goes to sort of what they call the shadow realm. And that is basically the hell of this world. And there it will either become a demon or be eaten by a demon, and bad things will happen to you. So there is a sort of a judge and executioner sort of thing upon your soul that during your life you need to be good. Now, being good is a very relative thing. It's very subjective. So it's not so much about being good. It's more about finding meaning within your life. And if you have a meaningful life, your soul will feel fulfilled. And this is a subjective thing. The dark side of your soul must not overpower the light side of your soul. And that might be different for everyone. So someone might kill a person in war and they live with that guilt for the rest of their life, and they become a shadow soul because they could never heal from it. And also someone might be a warrior and kill dozens of bandits or fight in the wars and be very okay with it because they felt they were protecting their nation or their friends or their family, and they managed to sleep with that in their conscience, so they became a radiant soul. So this is sort of the core theme of Soul Atlas is the struggle within. And that is presented without. So, and you see this on all the religions and cultures in Soul Atlas. This is very, very heavy topic upon it.
But then what you just described is like the end of the life of a character, right? There's no coming back from that experience of going ascended or going down.
Yes.
So I understand that is the morality, that the philosophy within the world, but when you're playing a campaign, is there anything different? You're fighting monsters. You are gathering items.
It's not. I would say it's not so much of an adventurer kind of RPG like Dungeons and Dragons is. It's more, I would say, realistic. Even though it's a fantasy world, we like to keep it very gritty and very. We kind of try and justify everything. Even magic is justified within this world. So there are very hard-coded rules of why things work and how they work. And when we developed the world, we thought of economics, we thought of geopolitical situations, and for example, there was a sort of a rubber revolution where rubber was invented and discovered. And that made a huge difference in warfare because of slingshots and things like that. And they made slingshot cannons, and this was used for shipbuilding and whatnot. So rubber is a very intricate part of the world. There's also materials that are unique to this world. One of them is what we call 𝘊𝘰𝘰𝘥, which is sort of a floating rocks that have sort of a gas within them that makes sort of stones float. And that means that there are kind of flying mountains and airships, and also flying mountains where you have to mine this gas from within these stones. And you have to do it vertically, and so there's a bunch of different stuff that we thought about. How would that be done, and how do ships ascend and descend? But they basically, when they want to descend, they have to release this gas into the atmosphere. So the ship now becomes heavy and goes down.
So, like a balloon.
Yeah, like a balloon. So we thought of all those things, and it's been very, very interesting to help world build that.
But if you imagine like not a campaign, but sorry, what's the proper term for an episode within a campaign? It's a session. Imagine a session. If you imagine a session, what would be the percentage of action, fighting, or just narrative conversations and decisions? Like, for example, Dungeons and Dragons is very focused on combat, right? You can spend the whole session fighting room after room. But then I've played also Call of the Cthulhu, the RPG, and if you get into a fight, that means you're gonna die because you should avoid fighting. It's more conversation, testing. It's the sanity tests, the perception tests, etc., and avoid fights because you'll die. What can we thought about when we picture Trials of Akash?
So Trials of Akash is based on a system called the Forged in the Dark system. And this is a game that was made for a game that's also very well known, who's called what's it called? The Blades in the Dark. And Blades in the Dark is a sort of a heist game where you're rogues and thieves and you're trying to do a heist, like go into a museum and steal a painting and whatnot. And fighting is a part of it, but you're kind of trying to sneak around and gather resources and go against certain factions and try not to anger certain factions and whatnot. And so this game, even though it goes into that, it is not so much based on being roguish, but fights are meant to be very gritty and bloody. So you wouldn't want to fight as much as you fight in D&D, but it's also not a situation like Call of Cthulhu. Like if you see some outwardly being, you just need to run right now. It really depends on the party. We right now have developed, I think, 3 one-shots for the TTRPG, and they each have a sort of different theme, and we wanted to explore different aspects of it. The first one is sort of a travel. We wanted to test the travel system and how you would go from point A to point B, very large distance. And we wanted to kind of show the world. So it's more of an exploration type of session. You can fight if the party is made of fighting type characters like mercenaries and bounty hunters and whatnot. You could choose a route that will take you through more fighting. But if you are full of diplomats and bards and more talkative kind of characters, you can also do the whole adventure without doing a single fight. So it's really up to the players how they want to resolve situations. And we wanted, because we want to make the world realistic, we want the fights to be realistic as well. So if you're outnumbered, if you're outmatched, you usually don't want to fight. You want to find a different solution to the problem. And so we usually try and get players in that position where they can avoid the danger or go through it. And that's really up to the characters themselves. Like, what would you do? You have to think that this could have lasting implications on my character, because if you're playing D&D, you have a health pool and you sort of play with that. Okay, I still have a lot of HP, so I can go into the fight. Here, you don't really have that. Every single injury that you have sort of worsens your character, makes you less able to fight. So you're incurring disadvantages that they might be very relevant later on when you want to fight the big bad guy, or you have to do a very intense action scene towards the end of the session. So if your character now has a limp, that's going to be very bad for you.
Imagine so. Okay. And your website prominently states that you don't use generative AI for creative decisions. Can you talk about what this principle means to your team on a nowadays where everything seems to be supported on AI?
Yes, we had long talks about this, and even inside the company, we made sort of votes and decisions based on what everyone thought about it. And we've decided that we don't want AI to be a part of this, because this is such a long-term passion project where even the art department is over 40 people. So, and we want to also be a place where people can present their work and show things that were made by humans for humans. And AI is something that is helping creators and companies all around the world making their projects and their works now more easily and cheaper. But it is also removing sort of that agency from the painter and the writer of crafting each single stroke of the paintbrush or every single word. And there's something that dies from that when you are just sort of, instead of writing your own text, you just ask AI for a text and then you edit it. You sort of lose a lot of the essence of what Soul Atlas is. And so that sort of conundrum of, do I make this the easy way or the hard way, also connects to the theme of Soul Atlas of, do I have a life that has meaning? Do I have a work that has meaning? Or is it just something to get it done and move on to the next project? And we chose the first one.
Interesting. Okay, cool. We are getting close to the end, but still there is one more topic that I would like to talk to you from the introduction, which is you're about to launch this Kickstarter campaign for modular electronic app-controlled tabletop terrain system. Basically, it's a physical setup that people can use on their Dungeons and Dragons campaigns.
Yes.
With special effects.
We talk about Dungeons and Dragons because it is the more common one, and it is designed kind of with Dungeons and Dragons in mind. But if you have any other sort of dungeon crawling system where you have to build a dungeon and play on it, you absolutely can do it with this game. It's not tied to Dungeons and Dragons. However, However, for example, on the app that we have for it, we sort of made it so when you can create characters on the app as well, and it has all the sort of Dungeons and Dragons basic systems, like you can write your class and your level and your HP and whatnot. Maybe there are other systems that don't use those terminologies, but I think since it is the most common game and it is what most people will use it for, we wanted to have that. Eventually, maybe we can have it so it is editable. So when you create your character, you choose the names of the things that you're quantifying. But it's something we're working on. But the project itself, it is a modular tabletop RPG terrain that you can basically manipulate like it was a Lego or something like that. You can build it however way you want. It is all fully magnetic, and it is controlled by an app. That was the main thing that wanted to make difference. So what it does is you can, as a game master, have the whole game organized and mapped on the app. So whenever you want to, for example, start a smoke machine, open a secret door, reveal some sort of light effect. For example, you enter a boss room and you want all the lights to turn on at the same time. Just click a button on the app and that happens. So it's a sort of a way that we found that because with the ascension of online roleplay games and the way that people have been using Foundry and Roll20 for a long time, we sort of feel that more and more people are playing away from the table. So we wanted to give something that is modern, has modern technology to it, but keeps players on the table, because playing RPGs in person is very, very different from playing it online. And we've always strived to make it so that everyone wants to how should I say this? That people can gather around the table and have fun and not worry about, I'm looking at my phone, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, while we're playing the game. We wanted something that would keep players immersed in the game. And so this map, once it's on the table, it catches the players' attentions.
Yes,
right?
Everyone will be focused on what's happening there. So that's how you want players to feel, players and game masters to feel when they use the abandoned keep in a session. Is like that focus of attention for everyone.
Yes, a focus of attention and that kind of a wow factor of, what's happening next? Because you don't really need to build the whole map and then keep revealing it one space at a time. The game master can build it as they go if they want, because it's very easy to build. It's something that's very quick. If you want to go into all the electronic stuff, it might take a bit longer because you have to pass some cables under the map and whatnot. But if you want to just build a normal map and just make, here's the room, now you open the door, now I'm going to put the other room there. That's super easy, and you do it in less than 5 minutes. So it's very, and it's also vertically easy to build as well. So when you're, for example, going into a second floor, players find some stairs and whatnot, you can build the second floor without destroying the first one. And that's also something that was very important to us.
By the way, I've left the link in the video description for the campaign and for more information, images and videos about this product. But if you buy it, how many pieces of terrain are we talking about, just for people to have an idea?
So, for example, we have different pledge levels, as you'd imagine. So we have the smaller pledge level. It will be enough for sort of two small rooms that connect with each other.
But it's like dungeon environment, right? Always dungeon environment.
Yes. For this project in particular, we wanted to make kind of a castle feel, like abandoned ruins, or we call it the abandoned keep. but really you can use it for ruins or inside of a tavern, or you can make it so it is a temple or something like that. It's interior, but the floor, for example, is reversible. One side is stone, the other side is wood. So you can make sort of different
Interesting
ambience with it. And we also have some decorations like tables and armor stands or treasure chests and whatnot. So you can kind of populate your dungeon however you want. And in the future, we want to go into different biomes and maybe make a cave system or things like that. And really go into how modular this can be with different sort of themes. But for this one, because it's the more common one and the simplest one for us to do as a first-time company doing this, we wanted to keep it simple as a dungeon, like a more generic dungeon that people can use in more games. So it's not something that you play once and then put it away.
Eventually, you will end up in a dungeon, a castle, a tavern. So it's the most used environment for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned as well that this is your first campaign. You want to see how it goes, the success, and then you will think of eventual other biomes, as you mentioned. So far, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned from preparing this Kickstarter campaign?
Well, for one, managing expectations about timelines. We thought we would be ready for this campaign in around September of last year. So it's been a while, but we're a group of friends now. I didn't know much of the people that I'm working with right now when I started this project. I just played D&D with one of them, and then they invited me into the project because of my painting, mostly because I paint the models for Age of Sigmar and for D&D and whatnot. So they knew I could paint, and they invited me into it for that reason. And now, since then, I've evolved to be the art director for the whole project. But it's a very demanding environment, Kickstarter, in which I didn't know that you have to spend a lot of money on ads and do a lot of publicity. It doesn't grow organically as well as we'd like. So people have to see your project if they've never heard about you. You have to pay for ads so people can get to know it, right? So, and this was something that we really didn't know how much that was going to cost when we started. Well, now we do, and it's a lot, but it's been fun, and I've really enjoyed it so far.
Okay. So I hope also this video reaches out to people while the campaign is happening, at least upon release. And who knows, eventually, if you're watching the video later on and you're interested, there may be eventually more projects from the same team. So it's just a matter of reaching out and clicking and see what's happening at the moment. Okay. So I wish all the success for this campaign.
Thank you,
Alexandre. And I'm just looking here at the game, and we are also close to the end. This is going to be the last round. I've triggered it. So let's see how it unfolds. So I'm just going to pick this yellow one here and try.
Let's see. I'm not sure how your game is. I'm confident in mine.
Well, we are very paired when it comes to scoring, so it's going to be the final score that's going to dictate everything. So I'm just going to pick these black ones before you steal them. Okay. I can still do my magic with any of those that you left me. So, there's a second layer of this game, Alexandre, which is when you stop playing your own game and you play the anti-game, which is stealing from other people's what they do.
I saw what you did there, taking the only pieces that I could use.
So, but it's a matter for another day, right? For you to think about. Okay, let's see. Final scores now.
We'll see.
I
think this will be closer than the other one.
Some negatives for me. Now you have everything more packed in the middle, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Now the bonus points for the rows and the columns and the colors, and you have 2 columns there. Okay, wait.
Hey, 4 points.
4 points. Wow! Congratulations, Alexandre. Really, really close. So it's almost a tie. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed. Before we end this conversation today, I always like to ask for the guests if they could recommend me someone that could be an interesting future next guest, someone with an interesting project, story, profile. Who would you like to recommend?
Maybe 𝘙𝘰𝘭𝘦. I've worked with him before, and I know he's very much into also these geek themes that we talk about on this channel. And maybe you should give him a call, see if you can reach out to him. Maybe he'll take up the challenge. Maybe I'd like to recommend as well 𝘊𝘰𝘀𝘭𝑥 𝑚𝑜dular. I don't know if you've heard about him, but he's spearheading a project called 𝘚𝘪𝘨𝘮. And they also have one which is 𝘚𝘪𝘨 𝑎𝑘. But so basically it's a project where they are doing live plays, playing Dungeons and Dragons in front of an audience.
Challenge accepted. Alexandre, thank you for having the time to speak to me today. And again, everyone, for all the projects that we've spoken about, I've left the link in the video description. If you want to deep dive, reach out to Alexandre as well, or just connect and see where the conversation goes. Okay. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. See you around. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. Goodbye.